And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, yeah.
Back at you, more content. Of course, hundreds of NYPD officers sworn in as United States Capitol Police. It's quite interesting. This is a great topic. I think that we've had different opinions. We've received a lot of opposition when it comes to perspective about the NYPD participating in the activity of these volatile events at the Capitol. John, let's get right into it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny that we put out a podcast. We had a lot of Metro DC police officers reach out to me, first telling us that we're liars, telling us it's never going to happen. Metro DC police don't need the NYPD there. They're more qualified at handling protests, things of that nature. Just crazy things. I mean, I don't think we knocked the Metro DC police. We literally said in the podcast, they're not familiar with the geographical area, and NYPD cops will be useless. So, and we never made the claim that they were there to assist the Metro DC police. What we said is they're going to be on the ground in Washington, D.C. And sure enough, not only were they there to assist federally at the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol Police and the U.S. Parks Police, but they also, before, and I only believe that they got sworn in thanks to this podcast. So you guys are welcome for you guys that got sworn in and had that nice ceremony. But before that even happened, they were on the ground and actually involved in assisting in arrest with the Metro DC police. So I think exactly everything we said, we hit the nail on the head. I'm happy that they did swear them in and do things officially, even after that, to protect the officers from liability. But again, I'm going to say it. They had absolutely no business being there because New York City taxpayers don't fund the NYPD to be out in Washington, D.C. and to go on field trips and to go get sworn in different districts and play cop. And we're going to get into that all here today.
You know, I thought it was funny, some of the comments that we received from some of these D.C. police officers. I thought it was interesting. I didn't understand why they took it as an offense, that they were offended that the NYPD was actually going down there. That wasn't our perspective. And that what we were trying to weigh in is that the NYPD police officers that so-called volunteered for this event, that were going there kind of feeble-minded. And we were looking to explore the different avenues of them participating, taking part in this activity, of what are their potential liabilities and what are they accountable for, and how could the NYPD protect them if they are taking part in this, and that they're not thinking long-term of potential civil liability. And the fact that the DC Police Department and some of these cops themselves were getting offended, it's absolutely ridiculous. That's not what we're talking about. We're not trying to say the NYPD is better than you and then they can it's quite the opposite. I mean, they've been struggling with protests since October 8th, day in, day out. And we're not talking about the rank and file in the DC police or the NYPD. We've been critical of the leadership that's actually transporting and escorting the police officers to Washington, D.C., almost, to their own detriment, where they could be held liable. It's a good question. So you just said they end up, you and I both talked about it. They end up getting sworn as federal police officers on the grounds of Capitol Police. So I'm not sure exactly what that means as far as protection. I get it that they're there, and I guess at some point, because I would have to look into it myself. I don't want to say that I actually know. I would actually look into it myself and see what does that mean. Because when you swear into something, you're saying that you discharge the duties of something else, and you now uphold these duties. Just as when you get promoted from one rank to another, you discharge the duties of sergeant and get promoted to lieutenant, you now uphold those duties. So what are the duties and responsibilities of an NYPD police officer sworn in as a federal police officer? And does that protect you from potential civil liability? I'm not sure. I need to look into that. I don't think so.
I honestly think that it just allows them to operate in a police manner, like carry a gun, have shield, have arrest authority there. Because when you're swearing in, you have that authority in New York State. You have that authority nowhere else after that. So I think that's all it does. I don't know if it 100% shields you from liability, but it 1000% doesn't shield New York City taxpayers from liability. That's 100% sure. Again, violent crime is up over 30% since New York City Mayor Eric Adams took office. We've reported that over and over and over again. Some major outlets have reported it, and then sometimes we'll sit there and tell you crime is down. But that is the fact. Crime is up over 30% on New York City streets. There are illegal protests that happen in New York City daily. The NYPD does not look capable of handling these protests when they turn illegal, when there are planned shutdowns. We have not seen the same response that we have seen in the years past during the Bloomberg and Giuliani eras, and even in the Bill de Blasio era. We just not have seen the same level of ability to control New York City streets. We just haven't seen it, and that's not knocking anyone. It's just a fact. If it's a knock, it's a knock on the leadership, because I'm not blaming the cops. I'm blaming the planning. Same, I don't. And for you Metro guys out there with DC, we literally said how you guys are the experts at that point. Like, we're coming into your city. You know the nomenclature of that city. You know the laws. You know the geographical area. You know how to get a hospital. You know how to tell somebody where to go to a store to get a bottle of water. You know how to tell someone where to go to the bathroom. Like we said, when you're standing there, you could be the most capable, trained, fit, best sharpshooter, the de-escalation king. You might have a 3rd-degree black belt in verbal judo. But if you don't know where you are or where anything is, you're useless. And that's basically what we were saying. So you guys, we weren't sitting here saying, oh, the big boys are coming in to save you. That's 100% not what we were saying. We were saying you're taking people out of their geographical area of employment and you're putting them up for liability. You're putting New York City taxpayers up for liability. And it's a show. And you're using the NYPD to score brownie points. You're using these guys and girls as pawns for you to score brownie points to get a federal appointment. You want to laugh? And I don't know if this is true, but I'm gonna reveal something here that I keep getting in the background. Supposedly, now I don't believe it, but I could see it. I'll say right now, I don't believe it, but it wouldn't shock me that there are names being thrown around for the director of Secret Service. And guess who one of those names are, Eric? The illustrious, the first of his name, the hand of the king, Kaz, nephew, Daughtry.
Yeah, well, that's it makes sense to go to Secret Service because that's some secret, right? I tell you, you know what's interesting? There's so many things to look back at this, right? So what's interesting about this? So initially, when I had heard the rumor that the NYPD police officers would deploy to DC, I said, okay, if I was in a leadership position and I was actually going to take part in this, and I'm taking 200 police officers from the NYPD on a spontaneous action. It's not a planned event, right? It's pretty much spontaneous. It's happening last minute. It's happening in real time. And we don't have the time to really learn the geographical area. I would hope that we would assist the experts. And the experts are the DC police officers, the Capitol Police that are familiar with that area. They work there. They know it. Most of the people probably grow up there. They live there. They're residents of that area. I would assume that we would marry up with the DC police and the Capitol Police. Like, if you're standing a post, you would be standing a post with Capitol Police. You're there to assist them, to help them, right? But that's not that we knew right away. We knew right away was not part of the plan because the DC police officer said this would never happen. And that's the comments we were receiving from some of the DC police officers that watched the podcast. So we knew right away that happened. So the NYPD police officers are on their own. That's where I see a problem. The complete problem in the leadership. I would say, listen, you want the NYPD to help you? Sure. We'll be there in assistance. You guys are the experts. We will help you. If you're in an arrest situation, we're there to help you. But we're not going to be the primary vehicle that's going to take action. And we should expect the same. If the DC police officers were coming to New York to help with these day in and day out protests, I would expect them to come in as a secondary action in a supportive role. And that's not what we saw here. And what we also talked about is our perspective. is the police officers volunteering to take part in this, that it's kind of feeble-minded. They're putting themselves in a volatile situation. We've seen NYPD deploy to other parts of the country and other parts of the world, but they've been in a role of assistance, supportive, most of the time handing out food, some type of rescue mission. But to put them in a situation that they're going to be the primary role to take action because of violence is putting them, again, I believe that the civil liability is there, whether you're a New York City police officer, you're a state police officer, you're now sworn as a federal police officer. I still believe that you are held liable and you could potentially be the subject of a lawsuit.
All right, screw the DC cops who are upset because their egos are driven. They have their Vax card on the wall, framed up right next to that. They never went sick in their career, and that they're heroes. And they have the statue of the cop there, even though they have 4 arrests. Screw those guys. I don't care. I'm not here to protect egos. It is what it is. If you're upset because the cops are going there, you really have a problem, dude. You're not going to be able to handle these conversations. Let's get into the rumor, though. What the hell do you think about the rumor that Kaz Daughtry is on a list of names for the Secret Service?
I didn't hear that rumor until just now. But I wouldn't expect him to get hired as the manager of Walmart. So I listen. I don't know the guy personally.
Would it shock you, honestly? At this point, I'm gonna say right now he's more qualified than Cheeto was.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said it. So if we're, listen, we're making standards, right? In order to have comparisons, we need to have a standard. And now, she is the standard, right? You do not have to have any experience with Secret Service, any form of law enforcement to actually be in charge, especially in a lustrous agency like the Secret Service. So yeah, in comparison, Kaz Daughtry by far sets the bar for that. He has far more experience to be in that position than she does. And I think that, it would definitely fit part of this DEI movement. Again, I don't know Kaz Daughtry personally, right? But we know that we watch and we critique based on his leadership. And I do believe Mark many times. It looks like his heart's in the right place when it comes to certain things, but unfortunately it's now been overshadowed by his desire to be noticed by saying I all the time. I did this, I did that, and saying we outside, coming up with these things that they're the dream team, and and filling his ego with these stage photo ops. Unfortunately, it's now been redirected in a negative manner. But again, yeah, in comparison, sure, he would be more apt for that job. But do I think he's the one for the job? Absolutely not. I don't think that he should be in a leadership role with the NYPD as much as he is. I don't think he's ready for it, especially the Secret Service. But unfortunately, the bar has been set so low in this country for local law enforcement and now on the national level.
100%. I'm going to say it again. He wasn't qualified to be a sergeant in the NYPD. Never mind be the deputy commissioner of operations. But with that being said, the bar is so low that I see why the rumor is out there. Now, again, I don't know that it's true or it's not true. But, looks like they're trying to score brownie points at the federal level. Looks like John Shell's looking for a job too, Looks like they're good buddies, getting ready to get indicted. All the people around him are falling like flies. So they're going to be looking for jobs soon, all of them. Heard another rumor that Ed Caban's going to be stepping down soon. So not sure as that. We'll see what that is. But yeah, I'm going to sit there and say right now, he's far more, he might not be qualified to be a sergeant in the NYPD, but he's far more qualified than Cheeto was. And the fact that there was no surveillance up during the assassination attempt of Donald Trump almost makes him a shoo-in for the spot. Because what is he known for? He's the drone commissioner. That's what everybody on the streets call him. They call him the drone commissioner, and he's posting all this stuff. We outside too. His ego is like, forget about it. It's through the roof. So I think that I do think it's just a rumor because NYPD guys are notorious for making up lies, but I did get it a lot. But it's a funny conversation because it's actually something that we should talk about, because I think I think it really shows you're 100% right. The level of where we're at in this country, the level of incompetence, the level we're at to just throw people in positions. Oh, this kid knows drones because he tweeted about it. And now all of a sudden Now all of a sudden we're going to post them to one of the highest spots in the country where you need integral knowledge of how to protect people, and he just doesn't have it. And honestly, and even the Secret Service like came out after a lot of whistleblowers about Cheadle saying how incompetent she was and how poor leadership is. And I think if you put another DEI hire in there, which Kaz Daughtry will be because he already is one, then you're going to see even more incompetence, and you'll have more whistleblowers coming out saying how awful it was. And you're going to see that when Kaz Daughtry steps down in the NYPD too. You're going to see a lot of people going to come on the show, tell a lot of stories that a lot of people are going to be shocked by.
Well, you know what I think, honestly. So Kaz Daughtry, we know you watch his show and you actually post, you repost actually John's Instagram post, which is actually hysterical. But what's interesting by that is this is my advice, honestly, for your own mental health and wellness. We could tell, listen, your ego is really bruised by the criticism from this podcast by two retired lieutenants and Sal Greco and other people out there that are critical. But honestly, most of your focus is on this podcast and Sal Greco, because we've been the most critical out in the public eye when it comes to the police department leadership. And you've been at the forefront of that. And we know that your ego is bruised and you constantly talk about it. You spoke about it recently on Sid Rosenberg, how your social media team is out there to protect your ego. So what's going to happen if this rumor was true and he was to take a position with the Secret Service? Now you're going to be critiqued on the national level and actually worldwide. There's going to be worldwide leaders critiquing your ability to actually lead the Secret Service. And I'm sure they might be far more opinionated than we are. And their opinion actually might be even more heavily weighed than our opinion because of the weight that they have in the world. So this is something that you definitely want to think about, because you need extremely strong skin. Listen, we face an extreme amount of opposition on this podcast. We get some nasty comments out there on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. And you know what? You got to let it roll off your shoulders. We don't let it bother us. We don't even, it's funny. That's what you have to laugh at it. You can't take these things too seriously. If you have conviction in your ability, then stand on it. Anyway, let's play the video. Sid Rosenberg is interviewing Kaz Daughtry, and I think this is it's quite interesting. Listen to his response.
Yeah, so Eric puts this video out yesterday on Twitter, probably Instagram too. I don't remember. But Eric has a bad case of not sharing the same things he does on Twitter on Instagram, but we're working on that. So we're gonna get that out there. But yeah, this is Kaz on Sid Rosenberg yesterday. Sid, the friend to everybody and the friend to none. Is it up? Yes, it is. All right, here it comes. The police expert
said that we're getting, but this is more of on a federal level.
Yeah.
And I just want to address one thing, Sid, that we're getting criticized that, why is the NYPD sending officers down to DC?
Hold on, Kaz, who's criticizing you? I'm curious.
We're just my social media team is telling me that's a lot of stuff that they're seeing online.
Right.
And I would like to address that. First of all, number one, every officer that's down here in DC is on their day off, volunteer. So this doesn't affect our patrol numbers in the city. This doesn't affect that the city's paying officers to come down here. The federal government is paying for the officers that are down here, every last one of them, from the rank of PO all the way up. And secondly, every last officer that's down here is on their day off. So there's no officers that would take out of a patrol command to come down here and assist the DC team, which is not even a percent of officers, but less than 1% is down here in DC. And secondly, the Capitol Police requested mutual aid. They requested help. They requested help from us, Sid. And these officers are patriotic. They want to come down here, and they're doing this not only because they want to do it because they want to help their brothers and sisters down in here in DC, but they're doing it because they're patriotic, and this is what they feel that they.
Right, they're doing it because they're patriotic, I'm sure. So if this was an event that was potentially volatile and police officers were requested to protect Donald Trump, do you think the NYPD would have moved so swiftly and vastly to take part? It's quite interesting. He says that it's their day off. I don't see how they managed to pull this off in one day. So you tell me you got all the police officers together, did inspection at one police plaza, wherever the rally assembly point was, got them all in vehicles and buses, transported them for a 5-hour drive, rally them and assembly them again to find out their assignments, get their post, find out what's going on, the nomenclature, how they're going to fit in, work an entire detail, and then drive 5 hours back all in the same day. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Honestly, even if that's true, they went their day off and it's paid by federal means. The buck doesn't stop there, because the police officers, they observe things. They're witnesses. They may have taken part. There may be future hearings, future trials that they may have to take part in. We're talking about logistics now. We have to transport police officers back from New York City to DC to take part in further follow-up in regards to this event. So again, but what's the best part about this, Kaz Daughtry, my friend, I think we gave you some advice. You didn't take it. I'll give it to you one more time. This is free advice. When people criticize you and you shoot back at it, if you're going to shoot back at that criticism, call out exactly who you're speaking to. And you're speaking to John, myself, Sal Greco, I'm sure a couple other people, but mostly speaking to this podcast, because we've been critical of this action, this participation. Just call us out, speak right to us. And you know what? Again, we invite you on this podcast. Take the opportunity to come on the podcast. Let's discuss some of these issues. But what's mostly interesting about this is your social media team. So you have police officers full duty spending their time scrubbing social media to protect your ego. That's the way I see it.
So he has a social media team reporting to him. He's got a videographer reporting to him. And then we have DCPI that has their own social media team. I mean, complete waste of resources for this kid to get his name out there, make himself go viral. That's what he's concerned with. He's concerned with social media. He's concerned with getting his name out there. I think he was a little upset about the podcast we did and the tweets we put out about it, asking who's liable? Why are New York City police officers going out there when we have problems here in New York City? How do the taxpayers feel about that? And I put out a tweet and I said, did they volunteer or were they voluntold? And either Kaz Daughtry or his social media team retweeted that. I'm like, I put out a lot of tweets in defense of the NYPD. It's funny that they would retweet a tweet of mine that was actually very critical of the leadership on that. So I believe it was a complete mistake as he was combing through my social media, as he often does. So I don't believe that he retweeted it purposely. So it was funny yesterday to I go to look at his tweets because everyone's sending me that, he just retweeted what you did. I was like, what? So I laughed about that. But I mean, when I listen to this, and Sid, it's a good thing that this show is called Sid and Friends, because everybody's Sid's friend. Everybody. And listen, we've said it here 1,000 times. You have to show everybody respect. He should be respectful to everybody. But Sid doesn't do that. Sid pretends like he's your friend. He's your friend. He agrees with everything you say that day. And then he's going to bash you the next day. And then he agrees with everything you say the next day. And, really, he's nowhere. He's nobody. He's not a Republican. He's not a Democrat. He doesn't support Trump. He doesn't support Hillary. He supports the new thing. Sid is he's like a flagpole. He goes like this. He's like the flag. He waves whichever way it goes. So I don't listen to 770 ever. The only time I do is when I get clips like this. There's a few guys on there that I could listen to sometimes. But for all in all, I really don't listen to any show on there. I don't believe, if you look at the overall of who's on that roster, you have Anthony Weiner there. Anthony Carlos Danger Weiner on that show. I mean, that says all you need to know. They completely have David Patterson on there consistently, former New York governor who wanted to make it legal to resist arrest. And if you get away, you get away. They have far left Democrats own that lineup more than anything else. So, I mean, to me, that's that it's not conservative talk media. It's definitely not the number one show in media. I mean, they should check our numbers before they continue to say that they're the number one talk show in New York City, because I don't think so. But besides that fact, Kaz Daughtry comes on here because he probably listens to the podcast or sees the tweets and he's mad and he's completely unprepared for this. So what does he do? he goes to the New York City default position and he lies. I'm going to tell you right now. Everybody's on their RDO. For people that don't know what RDO means, that means your regular day off. We have the Deputy Commissioner of Operations for the NYPD. We have them on the ground. He makes about $260,000 a year, maybe a little less. Makes about $260,000 a year. He's on the ground. He doesn't have a day off. He's not on his RDO. He has his team with him of a security. Not only does he have a social media team and photographers and videographers and people on social media with him that aren't on their day off, he also has his security detail with him who also aren't on their day off. The chief of patrol. These are the two most important people in the NYPD when it comes to on-the-ground operations in New York City. The chief of patrol, John Schell, who also makes about 260. Katz makes a little more than him, and he's been, even when he was a detective. People should look into that. It was pretty interesting to find out. But he's also on the ground. He's not on his day off. And you're going to sit there and tell me that everybody's on their day off. I'm going to call it right now. That's complete, utter bullshit. That is a lie. And that is what consistently comes out of this administration, is where they have no problem sitting there and lying to the public's face. That right off the bat is disgusting. And I have a lot of other things to say about this.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, the ideology also of the police department is absolutely ridiculous, gaslighting the public. If this really was a matter of assistance and they really wanted to help DC, but also continue to help the residents of New York City and do the right job by them during a crime spree that we're having right now, 80 some odd patterns going on with illegal aliens, military age males throughout this migrant crisis. Wouldn't it be a smart move from a leadership perspective that Kaz Daughtry and John Schell, if they are the right leaders for the NYPD, to shelter in place, to stay with New York City, to address the problems that they're having, and to detail out someone to be in a leadership position to go with the police officer at DC. Now, that would be a smart move, but it would not be a move that would feed the selfish ego of Kaz Daughtry and John Schell, because it's about them. They want the camera. They want the camera time. They want the stage photo ops. And that's why I'm saying I do believe that there was a part of Kaz Daughtry that started out that he wanted to do good and really, be a good police officer, but he started to see how this could become about him. And this is really becoming almost narcissistic, and it's about them. It's so self-serving. It's not, it's from a leadership perspective, that's not a smart move. You want to keep your leaders to shelter in place and keep an eye on New York City. You're going to take your most important leadership and move them to DC and have someone else in place to lead the charge? And it's absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't even make any sense. Again, Kaz Daughtry thinks that he's gaslighting the public. He just moves stupidly. And Sid, I agree. I think it's hysterical. Sid, pretends that he's your buddy. Oh, who's criticizing you? Like he really cares. Come on. Honestly, I think he's almost being sarcastic with it. This is a joke. You're the Deputy Commissioner of Operations. You should be laughing at this. People criticizing you. You should be saying, you know what? They criticized me for going to DC. I'll go on their podcast and we'll have a great discussion about it. Someone's criticizing me. Listen, we'll go on. We'll have a great interview, and we can communicate and talk about how it doesn't affect New York City tax base, if that's really how you feel about it. But again, more gaslighting. I'm sure the feds are paying for gas. They're paying for everything with the uniforms. They're paying for all these cops to eat lunch. I'm sure the feds are paying for everything. Sell that bridge to someone else.
So, I mean, and that's the other thing he says on there. It's all federally funded. It's not all federally funded. It's a complete lie. Maybe they paid for the hours. Maybe they paid for the food in the hotel rooms, right? Maybe they did. Maybe that portion is federally funded. But you take hundreds of police officers, initial reports with 200. Some people say 500. Some people say as many as 600. You take these officers out, not on their RDO. Maybe the majority were, but definitely not all of them. So that's a lie. You take them out of New York City. You bring New York City equipment, vehicles, resources out of New York City that are taxpayer funded to be used in a different state, not a bordering county, not to help the people of New York City. So you take that equipment out, that is taxpayer funded. You take those a lot of resources out. Yeah, it was less than 1% of the NYPD, but still a significant amount of resources that could be used, especially when you're turning out one car on the midnight in certain Manhattan precincts, right? That we've spoke about before. And the majority of times you're turning out only 3 cars in precincts across this entire city. And by the way, when I say they're only turning out 3 cars, that means just on paper, because half the time it's only 2 cars running around, and you have bosses out there driving themselves by themselves when they're supposed to be supervising and helping to partake in proactively policing crime on New York City streets, but they can't because they're just trying to bring in the backfill of 911 calls. So you got that. Now you get an officer that gets injured or sick or possibly disabled. Guess who's paying for that? New York City taxpayers are. And now we just lost a cop, right? New York City taxpayers are paying when those vehicles get damaged. Who's paying when New York City police officers have to go to court or have to be interviewed for an incident that happened in Washington, D.C.? New York City taxpayers are paying for that. Who's paying if a New York City police officer is sued for something that happens in Washington, D.C.? New York City taxpayers are paying for that. So let's be transparent about when we say we're going to help our brothers and sisters. Let's not play the I'm a patriot game. All right. Because I've furthest thing. If you were a patriot, you'd be sitting here telling the truth. John Shell would be telling the truth that the borders need to be closed and we need to protect the sovereignty of our nation. So let's not pretend to play patriot. But I got to give you a shout out because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, pulled the same bullshit game you did. And he hung the American flag with a couple of other cowards, that Republican cowards, and sat there and played social media after it was all safe, after the men and women, the boots on the ground, were in harm's way, did what they had to do, and restored order in the Capitol. Do I think it was horrible to send people to go help Washington, D.C.? No. But I 100% agree with you, Eric. The fact that those two were there just shows the level of micromanagement that's happening in New York City. And it just shows that they do not trust who works under them. Because you're right. Could have been a captain, could have been a deputy inspector, possibly even an inspector. Maybe you send a 1-star chief, but you take one of the 2 most important people in the NYPD, and they need to go to Washington, D.C. to work a protest. I mean, is this ridiculous? Like, this is people should be up in arms about this. The person that should really be up in arms is Eric Adams, but he doesn't know. He's all about partying and show too, so he thinks it's great.
Well, that's exactly what's going on. It's just gaslighting. Again, this is just about them. It's interesting. I like to just say, right? So a lot of the cops that we're speaking to are saying that, that cops were volunteering for it. I find it hard to believe because I'm speaking to cops, sergeants, lieutenants on a daily basis and telling me how exhausted they are, how tired they are, how overworked they are, and they can't get a day off. But we've managed to get we're hearing a rumor that it's up to 500 to 600, possibly 600 police officers that participated in this deployment to DC from New York City. And you're telling me that there were close to 600 police officers willing to sacrifice a day off to not only work in New York City, but have to actually sit on a bus or drive a vehicle in a caravan from New York City to Washington, D.C. to stand a post in the unknown and then transport back in the same day. You could get 600 police officers to do that on their day off when they're exhausted. And they probably have to go back to work in New York City the following day and spend time away from their families when they can't get one day off per month. These police officers, sergeants, lieutenants, they're exhausted, overworked. I find it hard to believe that 600 people were volunteered. I'm sure, John, I agree with you that I'm sure they were voluntold. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. And again, I agree with you. Is there anything wrong with the New York City Police Department helping out in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world? No, but this is not a planned event. They did not move swiftly and smartly. Again, what I question is the reasoning behind this. Did the NYPD respond because They are requested and needed, and they're in dire need for them to assist the police officers that are the primary role in DC, which is the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police there. No. This is just a photo op. This photo is iconic and symbolic of what's going on there. It's Kaz Daughtry and John Shell show. That's all this is. It's the Kaz show, the John Shell. Everything that we see with the police department, everything that is done by the police department, we see Kaz, we see John Shell. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a protest, Kaz and John Shell. It's a vehicle pursuit, Kaz and John Shell. There's a shooting, it's Kaz and John Shell. So again, it's about their benefit. That's why I question why the police officers were deployed. They were there because of the benefit of these two. And here's the problem for the police officers that are there. And I hope this doesn't happen to you. In 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when these two are no longer for the New York City Police Department, excuse me, and they found themselves a job with the Democratic Party, and you have a lawsuit that you have to face, or you have to go to D.C., you got a notification, a subpoena, police officer Schmuckatelli, you got a notification. You're working in some precinct in New York City, and you have to go to D.C. to testify at some hearing. And you go to the desk sergeant. You go, Sarge, listen, I got to go down to D.C. Remember that protest 3 years ago? Kid, what are you talking about? I don't know. Figure it out. Good luck with that. Good luck, because those two, call them up, see if they'll help you out. They're like, what? I'm working with the Secret Service. Who's this? Can't talk. Bye.
No, it's a great point. Listen, I commend anybody that did volunteer, right? I really do. Listen, it's just a testament to the people that are in law enforcement. You're going to go out there. You have no idea what you're going to face. You don't know where you're going to be, and you're going to do whatever needs to be done to try to get through the day and keep yourself and others around you safe. So I commend you people for doing it. I do. But you were used as pawns. Let's face it. Eric and myself, we did an X Space yesterday with Nick Sotor. He's the king of X Spaces. X Spaces are like virtual town halls. You know, you're on Twitter, just your photos there and your Twitter handle. And, you know, some people are speaking. And Nick's on the ground, and he actually gets tear gassed because it gets out of hand and start to spray tear gas. I'm assuming the DC Capitol Police use that. It's not something that the NYPD does often. So I doubt we did it in another state. We don't do it in New York. So he gets hit with gas. He's looking for water. He approaches a cop and he goes to the cop, I need to get to a store. My eyes are burning and I can't see. I need to get water. And the cop says, I don't know where there's a store. I'm from the NYPD. Right. And so, I mean, it just shows you like you weren't put out there. You were put out there. You don't know where you are. You don't know how to move. You don't know where the hospital routes are. You're given a roster detail and you're in a place that you're really unfamiliar with. Even if you visited once or twice, you're not really familiar with. And that's what I say. Like when I go to New York City, I was in the city a lot this past month and still here now. And like, I have no problem. Like if you threw me in uniform right now, I'm completely comfortable. You throw me in Staten Island, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, even a lot of parts of Queens. I know the streets. I know where everything is. I know how to maneuver. I don't need a GPS. I don't need anybody to tell me anything. I know where I could go to use the bathroom. I know where I could go to get water. I know where the hospitals are. I know where the police stations are. I have no problem. Throw me in uniform. Throw me in a car. You throw me in Washington, D.C., I have no idea where I am. So the thumbnail for this show is a cop standing there, and it looks like a girl's asking him something, and it's an NYPD guy standing in front of the White House, and he's like, I don't know. I'm from New York City, and to be fair, I mean that could happen to you, and a lot of people commented on that. Well, they're like, oh, that's me when I'm in Brooklyn, or that's me when I'm in Manhattan, or that. But is it really you? You kind of know how to maneuver on the streets in New York City. You know a roundabout. You have some familiarity with that geographical area. But now I take you in Washington, D.C., and again, we said it on the last podcast. You don't know the laws. You don't know the rules and the regulations. You don't know the training of the police officers. And you 100% don't know the geographical area or the things around it. So you're basically useless. And I agree with you, Eric. I think that is the biggest point in this all. Were they there to really assist the Capitol Police, or were we there to score brownie points with the Democratic Party? And I'm going to sit there right now and say, you guys were all used as pawns by these two for them to score points, and Eric Adams to score points with the Democratic Party. So, I mean, it is what it is. Truth's a terrible thing, but that's exactly what happened.
And I know we're getting close to wrapping this up here, but before we wrap it up, I just want to say this. Eric Adams, when he took office, said his plan was that police officers that are in full duty, that are in good physical and mental health, that have a firearm, are going to be working the streets of New York City, and no longer will we have these administrative roles. He would really shorthand these administrative roles on the uniform part B. But yet, Kaz Daughtry, who's ultimately in line to be the police commissioner, has his own social media team. How many police officers make up this actual social media team? I mean, we were told there was 86 police officers that are part of the social media unit through DCPI. That's what we heard through the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. Well, it was 86. Now it's 85 because one of those police officers killed someone in New Jersey in a road rage incident, or potentially a rumor that it's some type of lover's quarrel. So it's quite interesting. But yet Kaz Daughtry has his own social media team. And what I gathered from this, I mean, I don't have the whole context, just from this interview, is that he has his own personal social media team. That's the appearance. So, Kaz, I know you like to respond to criticism. Here's the question. Do you have your own social media team assigned to you and John Shell to protect your egos? Do you have them scrubbing, looking through John's tweets and my tweets, trying to find information to try to open up another investigation to try to find a way to hit us criminally or civilly? Because we know you're doing it. We have information, and I won't give you the information of the cops because you'll transfer them or you'll have them terminated. So these are questions. These are questions how you're utilizing the police department, because the New York City residents have a right to know how the leadership of the police department utilizes the men and women, where their taxpayer money is going, and how it's addressing their public safety in New York City.
Well, 100%. It's a complete misuse of police resources. I said it before when Eric Adams said about pulling cops off the street, pulling them out of administrative units. I said it before. There needs to be cops in certain units. There 1,000% needs to be cops to perform administrative functions, to protect confidential information and things of that nature that don't need to be leaked out to the public, or to possibly have a police perspective for whatever asset they're sitting in or things of that nature. You're going to need a police officer mind in certain administrative roles. And when it comes to integrity, financial decisions, things of that nature, should have a uniformed service, a member of the service to protect the NYPD when it comes to integrity. So what we've seen under Eric Adams is there's more people in administrative positions now than prior to him coming into office. And there's way less people on New York City streets. There's way less cops. This is again, I'm going to say it over and over again. If this administration is doing such a great job, why has the most amount of people retired prior to their 20 years happen now than any other time in history? Why has the most amount of cops resigned without even vested benefits more than any other time in history? And why are retirements up more than any other time in history? And you have to lay the blame solely on the feet of Eric Adams and his appointed managers. And you're seeing it because of things like this nepotism. Who's on that team? I guarantee it's a very young officer. Maybe he has 3 years on the job, but hopefully he won't do what Tariq Shepard's pick did: drive out to Jersey, possibly who could be involved in a lover's triangle, shoot somebody while he's off duty, leave the person a quadriplegic, drive home, leave, and go to work the next day. Like nothing happened. Hopefully, these people don't do that, right? But that's what we see. We see this administration surrounds themselves with young, inexperienced people because they're impressionable. So yeah, I say let's wrap this up. But I say all in all, the DC cops are in DC because this is just more gaslighting. And you guys were used as pawns. I commend you for going, but just realize what that was.
Yeah, definitely. I want to leave with this last thing. And this is my other question for you, Kaz Audrey, because we know you watch this. Your dream team that initially attacked and tried to smear John and myself on social media, along with All Cops Are Woke, the cop that was hiding behind the moniker, All Cops Are Woke, that actually threatened our families. Were those cops part of your social media team? I'm just curious. If they, I'd like to know if they were part of your team. Listen, get back to us. We invite you on this podcast. We look forward to it. Opposition meets opportunity. Be a great conversation, so we look forward to it. Hope to see you soon, Kaz.
Last thing. To the people investigating the complaint we made about Kaz, Shell, Caban misusing police resources and utilizing them to attack this podcast on social media, and through other outlets, to you guys who are transcripting this and putting it in, we are very curious to see the conclusion of this case. We're very curious. We will be foiling requests, the investigative steps that were taken or omitted, the allegations that we made, which ones were taken or omitted, the subjects that we put in there, which ones were taken and which ones were omitted, because this needs to come to light, what's been going on. So focused on a podcast and on criticism when they should be focused on public safety for New York City residents, when they should be focused on that. Instead, they're focused on their ego and their image. And honestly, it just shows their lack of experience, their lack of qualifications, and their lack of integrity. And what happens in the dark will come out in the light. So maybe it doesn't happen in the next 2 years. Maybe it doesn't happen in the next 4 years. But everyone and anyone that was involved in threatening our families, and then the police officers that covered it up, we will be making everything public. So just keep that in mind while you're sitting there, putting your head down, pretending like everything's normal, trying to omit things and not tell us who threatened our children, and protecting people that had no business wearing a badge and a gun, and definitely have no business in leadership. So that was my message to them. Eric, anything before you get out?
Sure. And then our social media team will be putting that information out there public. Just want to let you know that. You got your team, we got ours. Take care.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed, or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?